doing? How we doing? A special thank you to Mellifluence for joining me. Abdullah back again. Hey, Abdullah.
Hi, Brandon. Great to be back again. Thanks very much.
And today we're going to be doing, I'm going to let him steal the show. He got inspired today. I mean, maybe you want to talk about that. When you get, as a creator, when you get inspired, you like to just take off with ideas, and that's how you want to be motivated and stuff. You've talked to me about that offline a bit, and I think that's very, very interesting. But I'm going to let you take it over and welcome everyone.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Brandon. Hello, everyone. So today I'd finished a DM Musk Absolute with vanilla, castoreum, ambergris, and DM Musk. And this is the yield I got at the end from 30 ml of tinctures, actually about 35 ml of the pure resin. There's under 1 gram left there, so it's under 3% yield. But there was also oil on the top as well. So this is often what you'll find that happens with absolutes when making them. They kind of split into 2 sections. So yeah, I'd completed this, and then I thought it's on my mind to make an attar with it, a vanilla, musk, perhaps a boozy rum with henna, myrrh, maybe cinnamon. I got a lot of oils out just before me and Brandon hooked up on the call here, and just thought I can kind of guide people through how you make an attar and those connections between scent, and describe a little bit why the oils I've chose, what I've chose, a little bit about them perhaps too.
Very good. So will this be a brand new attar that people will be able to buy?
Yeah, it will. It'll be a brand new attar. It won't be a repeat of older attars I've made, although what I find actually happens is that now I've made around almost 300 attars that it kind of branches out like a tree. And you'll find now that you encounter similar scents when you're making an attar. So rum sakan attar is quite close to a boozy, vanilla, warm, radiant, oody scent. So this might go quite close to that direction. And then also saffron musk imperial has some elements of this. So it's trying to find a new branch through into some area that's slightly unexplored with vanilla, musk, castoreum, myrrh, cinnamon, and we'll see what else kind of comes
awesome.
in.
And I just want everybody to know this is totally spontaneous. This is we planned something totally different. He got inspired, so I'm like, heck yeah, this is what I want to do. So I pulled out. We talked for about 5 minutes beforehand, and I pulled out some of the materials he's going to use, and we'll try to smell while we go. So sweet.
So did you say you'd like me to go ahead, or?
Absolutely, please.
Great. So what I would usually start with is like the heart of the attar. So if we're going to make anything, you want to, personally, this is what I choose to do. There's so many ways to do it. You could start with high notes first, middle, base notes. It really depends on your own technique. For me, I usually like to start with a focal point, so that can be shaped, and just to get that real smell of the heart notes that you want in there. So first of all, I'm going to use this oil, and the reason I would use this, this is the DM Musk, castoreum, vanilla, and ambergris. And the reason I'll use this oil first instead of this one is so thick that as soon as it comes into contact with pipettes or the glass, it just sticks to it. So it needs a little bit of something down first. So I have here my vessel. I'll just use a 50 ml borosilicate glass. And you get a feel for this over time of how much to use and what to do first. And if you're going to experiment, it's usually best to start quite small instead of big. But because I've made this type of attar many times, I'm quite confident that this will work really well. It's not so experimental for me. So I'm going to use 0.5 ml of this vanilla, castoreum, ambergris, DM Musk in here, and it's so small in the bottom, but I'm just going to make a small amount first and then double up the ratios as I go. What is this one?
Oh no, I'm smelling as we go along. This is the musk tincture.
Oh, okay, yeah. You have such a small amount left, it must have leaked quite a bit out there.
But I haven't even opened it. It smells beautiful.
Excellent.
I don't think I'll ever open it. I mean, unless I know to buy more.
They've worked so well together. The vanilla really complements the deer musk. The castoreum adds a lot of depth. The ambiguous smooths things out and makes it kind of powdery and soft. So next here, I'm going to use 1 ml of Bangladeshi blandevan sandalwood. This is just to dilute the first oil that I've used a bit and give something for the much thicker deer musk to land on and blend in with.
I've never heard of the sandalwood. Oh, Bengal sandalwood.
Bandarban, so it's a place in Bangladesh. It's on a border, and it's a national park, I believe. And it's actually one of the newer sandalwoods that I've gotten. I've had a sample a few times, but it was the first time I bought quite a bigger amount. What is that one?
Bengal sandalwood.
Oh, okay, right. So
if
Bengal.
If I have the materials, I'll just show them on my side of the film.
Yeah, excellent.
This is from a region of the door.
Oh, right, very nice. So we still have just a very small amount in here, and it went cloudy almost straight away. So this sometimes happens with these absolutes. And what you can do in this instance, I didn't quite expect this to happen. So things always crop up during perfumery. But what can happen sometimes when there's a water content in an oil, and because this was the top oil, these musks have very little water in them. But even if a tiny amount gets in, it will make a blend cloudy. And this baffled me for a long time, like what actually makes things go cloudy. And it can be a number of different things. It can be water content, slight particulates, sometimes just the nature of the material. It can be quite waxy or fatty. And it's not really a big issue to worry about. And other things can clear this up. And you'll see as we go, this will turn from this quite cloudy to a very clear liquid in not too long. So next I'll use the very thick resinoid of the deer musk, and this is going to be a really expensive material, but I was so excited.
What kind of deer musk is this?
Sorry?
What kind of deer musk is this?
It was Mongolian deer musk, this one.
Good.
Right, so I'm getting a bit of the liquid here. I want to try and get all of the tar in here. Yeah, so this absolute took quite a while to make and reduce down, but as soon as it started to reduce, you could just smell it. This was going to be something really special. So that's going to go in.
And just for people out there, the sandalwood acts almost as a bridge for all of this, right? You're going to lose a lot of that creamy butterness, but
yes, it does. It plays a really undercurrent part of it. So it's almost like a subtle background for things to work on. And I would explain it a bit like perfumery is a little bit like painting. Oh, and one really important thing I forgot while I was going here is write everything down, every single thing.
We'll have the recording too, so.
Yeah. Oh, that's really helpful. Yeah, we can go back over it. But I should also mention this. So let me just grab a pen one moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And write these down. So
this Bangladesh one that he has is just an extreme. It is the most buttery sandalwood I own. I think that's why early on in my reviews, I would always say butter with sandalwood is because of this Bengal one I have from Arij. None have been this buttery that I compare to. My sort has more of a bite with the creaminess.
Yes, yeah. Sandalwood's such a delicate and subtle base, and it does really play a part in all of the attars you'll use it with, especially if it's going to be a light or kind of translucent attar that you're going to sense that sandalwood in it. As soon as you start adding heavy elements, it's obviously going to be more like pushed down to the bottom, but it can still come through in those like end notes. It can add a lot of complexity.
Dry down, yeah.
Subtle blends can show up in the dry down. So I'll write this last one down and then we'll continue with this.
Do you put stuff into the computer also, or is this all handwritten, all your Attars?
What I tend to do, everything's handwritten first, and then it goes into the computer afterwards, just typing up all the formula. But most of it is in books that I have. So sorry,
are those for sale?
No. Yeah, I'm really open with like sharing kind of information on making perfumes, but I really want people to.
That was a joke.
I know, yeah, but you get people asking. You do, for sure. So you.
That's something you traditionally. That's something you pass down to your family, correct?
Yes. Yeah. In India, I think that would very much be the case, and I'd heard that that's kind of falling out of. Well, I say style as much because of kind of changes in culture, and people don't want to sit in around the hot furnaces. They're distilling things like their fathers used to, and so it is quite a shame that that's dying a little bit there. But then it pops up in unusual places like Newcastle in the northeast here, which is quite far from India.
And
sorry.
And here, and me.
So what we have here, yeah. This is quite messy, quite cloudy. It does not look like Attar at the moment, but it will really clear up. And you'll find this happens with absolutes, and don't let it put you off or worry you. As long as you're not adding actual matter into the Attar, like say if grains of different things get in. Damask is all right. Ambiguous is okay. I wouldn't put real civet in there apart from the civet absolute. Right. So next, this bit is pretty much just inspirational. What I think will come next. So we've got quite a strong, smoky vanilla damask blend here. The sandalwood's quite prominent in it. And what I want to do is kind of bring out a really warm heart note that'll complement the vanilla. And it's not going to be exactly like directly complementing the vanilla, because there's other things I have that are really close to vanilla. I can add more vanilla absolute or oleo resin or CO2, but I kind of want to shape this warm heart in the middle. So I'm going to go with a little bit of budderwood here, and this is one of my favorite materials. This one's from White Lotus here. Oh, beautiful. You've got a big one. You're always going big, Brandon.
Oh, man.
I'm going to put 10 of budderwood in here. I don't want it to be really prominent. And this can be altered in the ratios after. If it feels a little bit too strong, this can be altered after.
And you just get used to the drop, because drops are so different per oil. You just get used to the drops yourself when you do that.
You do, and also just the measurement of like how far it goes up the pipette. You kind of know automatically that after doing it for a while that is that many drops. So what I do often use is like digital scales. If you're making something very accurate, you want to repeat again and again.
Yeah.
But because this is a one-off material, and the next time I make it, it would be very different, that I can't really do that exact replication from scratch, especially when you're making a cord, when you're using an accord or using something else pre-made. That would be difficult to replicate again.
Do you know how big a batch you're going for here, or is this still guessing?
It's probably going to be about 40 ml at a guess, but that'll change because of potency, and this damask's almost already used, so that is going to.
You're going to sell this out in 10 minutes, like
it could, yeah, it could go very quick.
I guarantee it.
Just really. Like that first damask absolute was an experiment, and a lot of what I do is continual experimentation, and I feel this is the best way to kind of hone in on scents. And I run business very differently from a lot of other people. Like they're making kind of perhaps 10 perfumes that they want to sell again and again and again. I'm like just overloaded with ideas all the time on like scent. So I want to explore as much as I can and then share that with other people as well. So it's like a scent journey. It's not a kind of corporate business where I'm looking to make the same thing again and again and again. So the next thing that came to mind straight away making this was henna. So I have
perfect.
a really nice henna melange from White Lotus again. Just have to locate it here. Mine's quite small, and this is also probably going to be the last of the henna.
Oh, was that saffron also? Henna saffron?
It is, yeah, it's a henna and saffron melange. So I'm going for 0.5 ml with this too. And basically what we're doing here is just building up the heart notes. And this can take quite a while. It can be, you can lay down though the idea and the foundation for an attar quite quickly in one night and then let it, well, personally, I find this, other people might have a totally different approach to perfumery. I can get something out in a single night if I focus, and then it'll be shaped over weeks, months, depends just on the attar. Each one has its own personality and its own time it takes to mature. So, right, what we have here is a bit like, this was like how Sugar Musk started. So you see I rolled this around the side and you can see how thick it has. A lot of kind of matter in it. And Sugar Musk started very similar because I used an unguent. This was like a paste that was made, and it obviously had a lot of matter in it, and that had to be kind of filtered out through the process of making it. And it's usually very simple. It settles down to the bottom as a sediment, and that helps the attar mature and age as well over time. So next I have a really, really special myrrh. Sorry, Brandon, were you going to say something?
No, not at all.
Okay. So this myrrh is an oleo resin of myrrh. It's actually slow distilled myrrh from a Spanish distiller, and it's one of the best myrrhs I've ever smelled. It's incredible. And you'll find myrrh differs quite a lot. This is really, really liquid. I mean, when you drip it, we're going to put 5 drips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is quite strong, quite a heavy base note, but it'll go with all those heart notes and just start to build up kind of this warm heart in the middle where we're going to kind of develop and deepen color and enlarge that over time.
And so, myrrh is like a sandalwood, but more heavy, where it bridges and creates a lift, a base for everything also?
I would say myrrh is it's a heavy base resin. I would say it differs a bit from sandalwood because sandalwood's so clean and clear and translucent. It's not often murky. You do get that facet sometimes, but not often. Myrrh is quite dense and it's not translucent. It's like it'll create a thick wall in your scent unless you use something quite light, like I have some Nambian myrrh here, which is a white liquid. Whoa. And it's very rare you'll find myrrh as a clear liquid.
I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah, I know. It's an unusual distillation, and it's likely a very light colored myrrh. So yeah, I've added a little myrrh here. And what I would do is constantly keep smelling. Every time you add something is smell it, and that'll direct you to where to go to next. So I've kind of planned everything here, like everything I think will go, but more ideas might pop up when you smell something. You think, oh, right, like a little bit of birch perhaps, or a little bit of louse oud or something. So yeah, this smells quite earthy, warm. It's kind of like a Coca-Cola vibe, which is something I enjoy and I like. And Regolith kind of went into this territory, one of my previous attars, and Rum Sukan. But I want to make this a bit different. I want this to be the vanilla to take the center stage, to be really bold, leathery almost, resinous, but also some powderiness coming off in the high notes. So I'm going to go for 2 vanillas here. I'm going to use the vanilla oleo resin first. This is a really nice one. I have 2 different ones. you go and talk about yours a little bit about Brandon, and then I'll
Oh, I
mix.
don't. There's only a little bit of this left.
Mhm.
It's a Tahitian, which is my favorite. And it's just one of the most well-rounded, perfect, sweet, rounded vanillas I know of. I have a deeper story that I've never shared, but it's kind of long. I'll share it another time.
Yeah.
But
So I
yeah.
put 6 drips of this is a Bourbon, Madagascar Bourbon vanilla oleo resin. Again, it's going to make it quite dark, still very cloudy. And this cloudiness will clear up when I add the Laos benzoin, and tinctures work really well to clear up cloudiness too. So I will be adding some of the ambergris tincture that we made last time. And this is really just to push that sediment
Is
down.
that the one you made with me?
It is, yes, yeah.
Right.
So yeah, the color, it's not got an amazing color yet, and it's a very low ratio because this is going to be used for a resinoid and not really for an ingredient. And the only reason I'm using it in this one is to clear up that cloudiness with a quite a small ratio of this tincture. And I find a lot of people will ask me like, you know, why do you use alcohol in your blends? Especially a lot of Muslim customers I have.
Yeah.
And really the alcohol serves so well to lift up absolutes, oleo resins, essential oils. It helps the diffusion to come off, gives a bigger sillage. It can lessen sometimes the longevity, but that also depends on what you blend with it. If you blend some really thick things like lab denim, you're going to still have really good longevity. So I've got to keep remembering to write down these ingredients going in here too.
I mean, again, I can get you this video quicker than I put it up.
Uh-huh.
So
Oh, brilliant. Okay. So
that,
do you think maybe I just go straight ahead and do it, and then
if
I'll
you're
just
okay with
say,
that, if you're okay with writing down afterwards, I'll give you the.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Right, my balls. Yeah. So next, I'm going to go with just a small amount of cinnamon bark, absolute.
Oh yes, I have that one.
Yeah, it's really, really special ingredient, this one. Very different from the essential oil. So I'm actually going to go 2 drips here. It's really potent. And because I'm really just building the heart, I'm kind of going in delicately, just using a wide array of oils to build a certain feel.
I feel
Excellent.
bad we're showing off all the White Lotus oils.
Yeah, yeah. They do have amazing, it's a real shame that they're closing.
Yeah.
So, okay, my mind's changed again. I'm not going to use that ambergris that we used last time. I'm going to use this black ambergris.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see. So my video actually disappeared, so I can't see you on the big screen at the moment. But this one's been aged around 4 months now. Ideally, I'd like to age it a bit longer, but really it's only playing a part here to dilute the sediment in the bottom and start to get a more
Lift.
explosive diffusion to it. So again, 0.5 ml here, and it's quite a lot here I'm adding for a blend initially, but I'll miss this out in when I double up the ratio, so that alcohol only serves in the first part to kind of clear up this cloudiness. And you can see straight away, if I shake it, the cloudiness comes back, but it has got less. Might be a little bit difficult to see through the camera, but there is clear liquid now at the top part. So that's already helped to kind of settle down that sediment. So I'll have a little smell here and then decide what to go on to next. But I can already see some Apopanax popping out at me here. This Apopanax is from Mandi Aftel. Really amazing. It's hard to find such a good Apopanax oil, but it works really well with henna. It has a warm, deep heart note that's quite rare in perfumery. And there's quite a lot of scents I really enjoy around this kind of rare note, and that would be like amberine, henna, henna in all its forms, the absolute, the CO2, melanges.
Where's your henna from?
My henna was white lotus,
Okay.
but it was
Oh, yeah, you did
melange,
say
this
that.
one.
Yeah.
I did get some Indian henna from Gulab Singh Johramal, and that was amazing. They do really, really nice henna, and it's just how I like it. So I've used 4 drips here of a Popinax Absolute, and this should just assist that kind of cola, warm cola note, which is going to be a little bit boozy too, because boozy notes go really well with vanilla. And the Damascus castoreum is going to add a lot of body. And this already smells boozy. I've not added anything really that's boozy yet, but that combination of ingredients of vanilla, the budderwood, the apopanax, the henna, they've all come together to make kind of really warm, woozy scent. And next to that, which will enhance this booziness again, is mimosa. So we're going in one direction here, and this often happens when I'm making an attar. I start in one direction, and it can take a tangent depending on just how the scent smells. So when I was talking with you last time, hold on. So I've got 6 drops of Mimosa Absolute. This is a 30% dilution as well. But yeah, when I was talking with you last time about how Oceanus took a turn during making, and it was because of that smell that started to come about. It started to create like a landscape, and I was thinking there's things missing out of this landscape that need to be put in now. So I find that's personally the best way I work, is by being really flexible. And it's also very good to be technical and straightforward. If you have a goal and you want to set out and achieve that, that's a really good way of doing it. But my personal way is to be quite flexible and change during the making, and then I end up with what I feel is the best that could have been with the materials there. And I wasn't kind of putting my rules on it by being forceful and going one way and saying, no, I'm ignoring all of this. Is just be a little flexible. So now I'd like to build up the vanilla a little bit more. I have 2 vanilla CO2s here, and the CO2s, I find add really pleasant, light, creamy notes instead of the absolute, which is the very deep, resinous, leathery part of vanilla. The oleo being the kind of middle, it's resinous, but it also has powdery high notes and deep elements. The CO2 is much more those powdery high notes that are quite complex. So I have which one is which here? One from Uganda, and this is meant to be as good as the Tahitian from this unique buyer, and it's a really pleasant, it's creamy kind of ice cream notes, and there's also a lot of complexity. I'm putting 4 drips of this CO2 in, and I have a second one here as well, which I might add in once I smell how these are coming together. So yeah, this is kind of, it's changed with each ingredient that's come. There's an earthy element in there, quite dry and grounded, and the damask fits really well into that area of it. Then there's a boozy, warm middle note where it's kind of a rum vibe, with like a rum and coke kind of vibe. Then there's a higher kind of powdery element that's starting to develop with slight floral twists, and that's what I want out of this. But I want the vanilla to be stronger and more bold. So I'm going to add some vanilla absolute, and this is going to darken it up and again make it quite pasty. But I'll find tomorrow when I come to this attar, it'll look quite different from today. And this is a difficult material to use. This is like very, very thick. And a lot of these thick materials, what I tend to do is look at it, gauge how much is in there, and you get quite good at doing it after a while, and then smear it on the side, and then just repeatedly take up the attar, what you've made so far, the blend, and just kind of slowly pour the oil over that paste. Again, take it back up slowly, and you can kind of see what I'm doing here is the absolute sticks to the side, and it's just kind of washing it down into the rest of this. You know, some attars, they start clean and they end clean, and some start dirty and they end up just amazing. I often find the most unusual ones, that like unusual ingredients that are quite hard to use, like vanilla absolute, so grainy. This is not something you can suck up with a pipette at all. It won't work like that. It's like caramelized sugar in the bottom of it, so you just have to kind of work it in, and then again use tinctures really help to bring out that character of those absolutes, because they don't diffuse so easy on their own.
So I have a question for everybody. We talked about this before. You said you put in vanilla oleoresin, and you said you just put in vanilla absolute. What are the differences between the two?
So the absolute comes from a solvent extraction. So what they'll do, they'll add usually hexane. So you have your vanilla, they put all the hexane in there. It dissolves all of the resin, brings it down to the bottom. They get rid of all of the plant matter out of there. Then that hexane is evaporated off, usually filtered as well. I don't know, the processes are going to vary quite different from place to place, but they will filter out the hexane solvent and be left with an absolute. So sometimes that absolute can be an oil, sometimes it can be like that brown caramelized sugar, other times it can be a solid wax, sometimes it can be like a crystal almost, like copal. And then the oleo resin, this again, it really depends on how people are doing it. It could be an evaporated tincture, which is being brought down to a resinoid. So that term would be used interchangeably as an oleo resin or resinoid or an absolute, depending on how they've made it and how they feel it closely resembles that term. Like, people use these terms quite interchangeably. So yeah, the oleo resin is usually a bit less costly, and the absolute is more expensive. So obviously the yields from the absolute are a lot less than the oleo resin methods. But I don't know exactly how this is done. I would do it with a tincture and reduce it down personally.
Excellent, excellent.
So I want to deepen the base a little bit of this. So I'm going to use two things. The first one, I'm going to use a little bit of styrax, and styrax really complements vanilla very well. They kind of share that similar character that borders on leathery, powdery, sweet, and gourmand. And this is, again, a very difficult one to take up with a pipette. So I'm going to be measuring this on a scale. And I have to kind of balance a little bit here because my bottle's a little bit big for my scale. So maybe if you want to talk, Brandon, while I'm just measuring this out.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I'll probably cut this part.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so the styrax, this is called, its botanical name is Liquidambar orientalis. And again, this is a source of confusion for people. Benzoin, the name benzoin seems to be added to quite a lot of different materials. And that's just because the name just denotes that it's a tree resin, simply. So it's always best to look at the botanical name to know what you're getting and what you're using. And you'll find if you're buying benzoin, you're new to perfumery, buying benzoin, you're going to get different things every time you buy it, probably. And one of those things would be benzoin styrax, which comes from a shrub they call Liquidambar orientalis. And that's one of the true amber scents as well. It relates to ambiguous a bit, relates to vanilla, and other benzoin oils like Styrax tonkinensis.
Is this the one from White Lotus that you have?
No, it isn't. Mine's from Hermitage.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't tried White Lotus's Styrax yet.
It's very good, obviously.
I'm going to try a little bit of this on, because what often happens when you mix a lot of materials together, you'll find sometimes it smells of the last thing you added. more dominantly. And if you give it maybe an hour to settle, it'll have a different aroma again. Now, if you're really familiar with those materials, it doesn't actually make a whole lot of difference. You can really work around that and just keep going. And like I said, I can make an attar in one night, and if that problem doesn't really affect me so much, but it depends on what materials you work with. Right, so I feel this is veering off a little bit away from vanilla, and I'm going to add a different vanilla oleo resin this time. So the first one I added was quite powdery and light. This one's a bit more leathery and resinous. It shares some qualities of the absolute, but also a little sweetness too. So going to be 6 drips of vanilla oleo resin. Again, in this, we want this like quite a heavy vanilla scent, and you'll find whenever you're blending with vanilla, you're usually always going to be left with a sediment in the bottle, and it's just not a big issue. It's just let it settle to the bottom, give it time. And I think one of the best ingredients in perfumery is time, and patience is key when making perfumes. Is usually I wouldn't like hurry a perfume or make it quickly, but I feel I'm confident enough with what I make that I can just do that without worry, and I know how to steer blends in the right way. If you're doing it the first time, you might want to go quite slowly.
And one of the important things that I see you doing here is the layering of one material. I've just seen you use vanilla 3 different ways, plus the benzoin, which adds to vanilla very well to create almost, you're starting an amber effect a bit. But it's just, and then like if you added a vanilla tincture to this, all of a sudden you get another expression.
That's it, and you could make, I'm quite into the idea of minimal perfumery, but what I end up doing usually is like maximal perfumery. I kind of try to occupy a lot of spectrum of scents at one time, and I just find that really stimulating. But the idea of minimal perfumery interests me so much, as well as like making, say, a vanilla attar and using so many different vanillas to build up a body of vanilla that is incomparable to the other materials. It's just taken on a whole new like living form to it. And then musks, subtle use of musks in there too, just exaggerates that even more. So yeah, that's a thing that interests me a lot. What I'm going to do now is add an aged cistus. So this is labdanum, essentially.
Oh, so you are creating amber accord.
Yeah. So it is. Yeah, it's going into that territory, and the smell I get at the moment is like there's an old ambergris, one of the first ambergris smells I encountered, and it just had this kind of real red aroma, quite hard to describe, but it's like that henna, golden champaca, bay rum, apopanax. All of those occupy that like warm cola scent that's really fuzzy and just feels so soothing. And yeah, ambergris, when it's aged well, can also develop that scent. And I fell in love with it the first time I smelled it, and that's so close with cistus as well. That cistus holds that element of that note in there. So I'm going to go 4 drips of this aged cistus. This one's 8 years old. Again, from Mandy Aftel. Really, really beautiful material. It smells like deep red berries.
Mine is fairly new, the cistus I have, but it has that heavy top note that you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Cistus can be quite different as well in the ways that you get it. Like the absolute, the very heavy resinous absolute you get is quite different from the essential oil.
It probably takes off a lot of that top then, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's almost, I find it like a barnyard. Like real cistus essential oil has a bit of a Hindi oud barnyard top note.
This top note, it's too menthol. I get what you're saying beneath it, but the very top's like eucalyptus almost. It's got
okay, interesting.
The spice, like it's a fresh thing, but I totally get what you're saying by absolute that would melt away.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm looking at kind of different directions I can go with this, and it's either going towards the base and making the base more round and deep, which I'm most inclined to do, or developing the vanilla notes, which I think actually this has been a change of heart. I wanted to create the vanilla heart first of all, and then do the bass and then go into high notes. Now it's changing a bit where I feel it needs to be deeper and deeper and get that bass really developed. I just feel that's the best way to go at the moment. Oud, yeah, oud's excellent, but I usually add oud a little bit later.
Because it's easy. What I've done I've only done a few compositions, but because oud's so expensive,
yeah,
I'll take a swipe and then put that on top to see if I like it. That
yeah,
way, I don't put it in the stuff.
And so I have like 25 different ouds here sitting beside me, and the reason why I would delay putting the oud in is because the character is going to keep developing of the Attar, and once it reaches a certain stage, then I'll know which oud will pair closest with it. At the moment, if I put the oud in, the oud will decide the direction it goes. I don't really want it to. I want the oud to complement it at the end instead of steering it in that direction. So I think, I often think as I speak, like I'll work things out as I speak. And I think that's why just naturally I would delay adding oud, is just because it's going to change direction a bit too quickly. So I want the vetiver notes to come out here. And I'm going to use vetiver in a slightly different way. I'm using a molecular distilled Thai vetiver here. And this one has a bit of rum character to it. It's quite warm. It shares some commonality with the henna again.
So what's a molecular distill? Is that?
It's basically like a fractional distillation.
Okay.
So yeah, they'll have a little bit of equipment. And again, this might differ with distiller to distiller, and they might term it different things depending on how they've extracted it and their knowledge as well. So this might be where they've added a column into the distillation vessel and extracted the notes that they want. And it's not an isolate because it contains quite a lot of the scent, but they may have filtered out all the base notes because this is quite a light vetiver. It occupies that middle high note range rather than the bass. And I have a bass note here, which is Java, which I'll add next, and probably Bourbon vetiver as well. And again, building up multiple uses of the same material from different distillers in different regions helps to develop that complexity and makes it more like you're making the scent yourself, you're shaping what it is, and each ingredient you're adding is detailing that, very much like a painting.
Have you tried Insars vetivers?
I haven't, but I really wanted to.
They're excellent. So exclusive, and then Aroha d'Afrique. They're very interesting.
Yeah, I did read up the description and I was like, I want that. And I think it was just at the time I didn't have the finances. And then you see 1,000 other ingredients that you just get exactly what you want to get again. So I'm going to go with the Bourbon vetiver because the Java vetiver leans a bit more towards coffee. And I had in mind that this might take direction towards coffee a little bit, and I put a coffee blossom absolute out as well just in case it did, but I don't feel I want to go in that direction yet. I'd much rather keep building up that deep base.
I'm a super coffee drinker, but for fragrance, tea interests me a lot more.
Yeah, the same.
Thai iced tea is something that is really how do we? People are getting close to it in fragrance, but it's such. Every time I have one, I'm like, this would actually be a good Attar here.
Yeah, I prefer tea over coffee as well, just because of that variety of notes, and real tea scents are also very rare in perfumery, like that. Kind of explosive tea aroma. The first one I encountered was Ru Rajnagandha, if I'm pronouncing that right. and that was from Gulab Singh Johramal, and it had that explosive black tea character, but with floral, bitter, sharp, and the orange flower, bitter orange flower Absolute actually has that very sharp bitter tea quality as well, and I really enjoy that. So I've just added 0.5 ml of Java vetiver and 0.5 ml of vetiver MD from Thailand.
Yeah.
And that's really...
Speaking of tea, what yerba mate would be pretty good to add to this because it's got that henna quality to it.
I've not actually tried yerba mate yet.
Are you
I've
kidding?
seen it available to buy, and I was curious, but I've not actually tried it yet.
It's got that henna flair to it, but fresher, just a bit fresher, but definitely got that. I mean, it'd be perfect in this, how we're talking to you.
Excellent. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to try that. I think Hermitage have one as well. I'm not sure if it's a tincture or Absolute or CO2, but I'm going to go 5 drips again of ambrine here. So this again is like the ambiguous aroma that, and I often say, like, you know, this smells how it looks. It's got that deep ambery red quality, and it's thick, and the smell is like that too. It's like a thick ambery scent. This would go really well in like a deer musk amber blend. So right, giving it a good shake up again, and I'll give it another smell.
So for everybody not paying attention, in our A video that's already up there, you're going to see a lot of materials he's using here. I don't know if that was on purpose, if that inspired you. That was only a week ago, but that would be cool.
Yeah.
The funny thing is I used 3 of those materials in what I did last week, and they extremely helped me. Oh,
brilliant. I'm really pleased. Yeah, it's nice to be able to, you know, that often happens when you get a new scent, it inspires you and straight away you want to use it. And it's really helpful to do that, I feel, because you'll learn more from that material the more you use it. So this is a Somalian Myrrh Absolute, and this is one that I made myself. Really thick, and it verges on coffee again, like the Java vetiver.
That's amazing.
And it has a kind of smoky, old woodiness, and I'm going to use this in a small amount just to deepen the base a little bit more. And I have a thing with, like, I really like the bases to be very deep.
So we're going coffee then. Let's go coffee.
But this is only just a delicate accent. I'm just kind of using this to build up. I don't want to use too much labdanum and overdo this with labdanum. And if you use a number of different resins in one go, it builds up a wholly different scent than if you just used labdanum. If I used labdanum on its own and I made this, you'd smell it in the end, you might be like, oh yeah, it's like a labdanum henna vanilla scent. Whereas if I use kind of labdanum, myrrh, apopanax, the butterwood's not a tree resin, but it's very close in aroma. Pine could be a possibility as well.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
It just creates a whole different feel. You cannot pinpoint the myrrh anymore. You can't pinpoint the labdanum or the apopanax. They blend into a feeling rather than a single note. And this is why I'm an advocate for complex perfumes.
But Alex, you are getting to a place where I can tell that it's you. I have like 4 of your works, and there is a certain smell that's developing.
Yeah,
clearly yours. So it's been pretty cool to see that thumbprint.
Excellent. Thanks, Brandon. So next I'm going to add a nutmeg absolute. This one again is from Mandy Aftel.
I ordered that.
Oh, it's beautiful, this one. Really nice. And I'm going to go with 4 drips of this. And the way I'm deciding how much is going in is just because I know how strong these are. That Somali Myrrh Absolute's really strong, so I was going for 2 drips of it. The nutmeg, I want to play a bit more of a focal role because it adds to the henna and the apopanax and the cola vibe that I've got going in there.
Well, and always add less because you can always add another drop. So
yeah, definitely. And smell as you go. Always be cautious and patient. And It's much better to go slow than to hurry with it. It's so easy to make mistakes.
My big thing is for this. Oh, I was going to ask this, the saffron myrrh, before we move on. Did you, was that an alcohol tincture that started from?
The saffron imperial.
No, no, I'm sorry. The absolute that you just used.
Oh yes, it did. Yeah, it started from a tincture. Yeah.
So you just bought a bag of myrrh and then tinctured it and took that down into an absolute.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Okay. So tree resins have quite a high yield, and you get quite a lot out of them, usually about 25%, as opposed to tobacco, which you might get about 3%, and deer musk you might get about 1% from your tincture. So you can see it's much more favorable to make the absolute. So
that's upcoming, everybody. So he's going to show me how to make an absolute out of tobacco. This is 2 years, and I'm so disappointed in the work. Because I'm going to get what you just said, 3%. What you just said, that's why.
Oh, yeah. I know, it's a little bit saddening, I know, but it can't be helped. And the scent is so amazing once it's done. So this is Comoran vanilla from Comoros. And I'm going to go 6 drips of this. Right, so I'm just going to keep trying this on, find new spots on my arm that have not been coated with Attar here.
Yeah.
And I have to go the second arm. Yeah, and just to kind of keep smelling that progression. And it's quite important to, if you're making Attar, especially when you're just starting out, have some breaks and kind of walk out, get a bit of fresh air, or work with the window open, because you'll find I'm quite resilient to this, but a lot of people get smell blindness and you stop being able to smell certain notes. And it can happen to me as well. It depends what I work with, but usually I'm quite resilient and I don't get it so much. But it really helps. If I go outside now and I come back, there's likely to be things that I'm smelling that I'm not getting right this moment. So yeah, I'm going to go more vanilla again. I think I was a little bit shy on the vanilla before. So just kind of smelling how everything's come together. It feels like it just needs to get deeper and deeper, and then build up that light element afterwards. And we'll do that with some kind of interesting techniques. So I'm going 10 drips of vanilla oleo resin here. And the interesting techniques are kind of like platforms where the other scents can rest on. So some scents can be quite light and airy and just seem to disappear. Whereas if you put other things in there, they can kind of anchor them down. So ambergris is really good for things like that with florals. Civet is really good as well with florals and other materials. This one I may decide along the way, but ambergris, I'll probably use this ambergris resinoid that I've made in here. And again, this is going to make it super cloudy. But what I'll do, I'll add a vanilla tincture, like Brandon was saying before, probably later this evening. And that'll, again, create or put all the sediment down, get the strength out in the liquid at the top. And then I can gauge what direction it'll go. Like, we might not finish this evening.
That's fine.
Which is this one?
This is your ambergris.
Oh, okay, excellent. Yeah,
this is beautiful.
Yeah, it's an amazing smell.
It's resinoid,
and it's just like unlocking the scent out of the material, the fat, the ambergris that you get, the solid, and then kind of refining it through a little bit of very basic kind of alchemy, and making that resinoid. So yeah, this is going a little bit more like leathery and dark now, and I think perhaps a little bit of castoreum in this is going to like add that boldness that I want in there. I'm going to add a little bit of labdanum too. It's away from my kind of work area here.
Do you decide at this area, do you decide whether you go like with a castoreum or a civet? Because it seems like those two really take you a different direction depending on which one you go for.
They also work really well together. And the reason I'm using the castoreum here, it just pairs so well with vanilla and the dark base that I'm kind of creating. And I only want this as an accent. It's not going to actually be a main note. So I'm only going to add one drip of this. And we have, how much here? About 5 ml here. So it's a tiny amount. This is like 0.2% of the overall composition, roughly. And you smell it, you straight away, but it's not prominent. It's just there to kind of excite the vanilla. And it feels like that vanilla is sitting quite quietly at the minute, and it needs to be louder and bigger. And vanilla is quite hard to actually do this with, to get it to be like a really bold vanilla scent. And you have to use a lot of things to complement it and support it. It's quite like tobacco. Like a lot of people might think a tobacco attar is perhaps simple or easy to make. You just use tobacco, maybe some oud, but tobacco needs a lot of support to, it really needs a lot of work. So this is going to be another part of the base, and this is going to help give it like a clearer texture. This is the Laos benzoin from White Lotus, and it's super clean, very, very clean benzoin. And this is why it's such a good base. It's quite thick, very clean. It doesn't add a strong note. If anything, it adds that soft vanilla tone and that complement to the henna that I'm looking for. So yeah, this is really giving it its body.
So good. It's warm.
It's really nice. It's really nice. Benzoins make me think of really nice sandalwoods. Like there's a big gap in quality in benzoin. When you smell like high quality copal, it's so different from just an average copal you smell. And the same with benzoin.
Now, does benzoin age? Because copal and frankincense are better fresh. It's funny, some resins age perfectly, but some resins, it's all about fresh.
Yeah, I would kind of say frankincense. I actually really enjoy old frankincense. And it tends to be because it gets sweeter and sweeter as it gets older. And that's just what I've observed happening. But with copal, I haven't had a lot of different copal oils. So I haven't really observed it age over a long period. But I know from other people who've talked about copal that it does degrade a bit quicker. But I don't have much experience on that. So yeah, that animalic note is actually popping up a little bit in this blend now. And really, it probably won't. If I left this for a day and smelled it, that animalic note will probably vanish. And the only reason it's there is because it was the last ingredient that I added. So always be careful of that when you're smelling your perfume. You have to take it into account that whatever you last added is going to be that prominent smell. So yeah, it's taken shape, but it still needs quite a bit more work in my opinion here. And I'm going to go a bit more towards some middle notes again here. And I think blackcurrant will actually work really well with this. Somebody mentioned today in one of my posts that one of the old attars I made was called Yugen. And it was blackcurrant and castoreum as the main notes. Which one is this from? White Lotus, I see. Is that the CO2? Excellent. That's what I'll use as well. I have three different ones. One I'm nearly run out of. One, I have that blackcurrant CO2, and I have a blackcurrant melange as well. And I find the CO2, I just got a sample last time I went from White Lotus, and now I'm kicking myself because I should have got a lot more. But that's like a kind of pissy high note. It's got the fruity aspect, and then it's also got that like urine element that it shares in common with deer musk.
A little bit.
Yeah, yes.
It's also headed towards the whole dark cough syrup that you grew up with vibe.
Yeah, definitely. If you mixed sisters with that, Yeah, if you mix cistus with that and labdanum, you'll have that straight away, a bit of Buddha-wood. And that's why I refer to those as like medicinal notes,
Yeah.
because that's just my immediate reference for that medicinal smell. So again, I'm going to go really gentle. This is the blackcurrant melange, and I'm just going one drip of that. And this is
Wow.
just kind of give a glimpse of how it's going to, like what direction it's going to go in. And I think these are going to work really well, and they'll work really well as subtle back notes just to add warmth and fruitiness and liveliness to the blend. Yeah, and I feel they've worked really well. And there's a contrast that's formed already in here, and that is that vanilla that I feel I wanted initially to be that kind of a brown hue vanilla, like very resinous but dry and kind of earthy quality to it. But the henna and the rum and the Apopanax and the myrrh give it a more Coca-Cola kind of vibe, that warm, pleasant.
I don't think anybody's seen that either. So I think that's the way you should go, is to just really fizzle this
It
up.
works. Yeah, it smells really good and it works. I'm thinking maybe like, because really this is just like building the foundations of the building, I'm going 2 drips of Ambretolide here as well for a little bit of powdery high note. And this is a natural Ambretolide. It's not a synthetic one. And I don't use any synthetics at all. So this is all natural perfumery here. And I think a little bit of deer musk now.
Is this the Ambretolide you sent me, right, that you're using?
It is, yes.
Oh, yeah. So beautiful.
It is really pleasant. And
that will sparkle it like crazy.
Yeah, it pairs it with vanilla very well. It just has an affinity with vanilla.
You know, the ingredient I've been looking for forever, and it would fit perfect in here, is the kola nut.
Kola nut. Oh, okay. I have that. Kava is different, isn't it, from cola? It's not the same.
There's a KOLA nut. I mean, they literally used, that's why cola is called cola. They used to make original Coca-Cola from that nut.
Yes. Yeah, I've not tried that either. I'd love to get that. I had the kava, but I was quite sure that's a different ingredient entirely.
Oh, that'd be so perfect in what you're doing.
So I'm going for 1 drip of Nepalese deer musk here. And again, it's in a very low ratio at the moment because I want this to work as a back note. And people love these like heavy musks as forefront. But really, I want the vanilla to be forefront, and then I'm going to decorate it as it goes along. So we're building foundations here. So this is just a...
And then will this Attar be the last of this musk?
It will, yes. It will. Man. So I've just spilt a little bit of one of my materials here.
Sorry, I talked.
Castoreum. It's no problem. It happens on the little bench that I'm working on at the minute. I'll just put something down to prevent that at the moment.
Your wife and daughter are going to smell that tonight.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, that's going to be so much stronger than the blast I'm getting.
Castoreum's been the worst thing in my studio. Like, it's overwhelming.
It is, yeah.
Well, Civet would be. Civet actually would be, but the only Civet I have is from you, and it was, I remember smelling that. I was like, what did this guy see? That was the first animalic I've ever smelled in the raw, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is so rough. It's really, really a rough scent on its own. So I think I'm going to do...
Civet sounds like it should go in there.
I think it will. It'll form a nice layer, but it just doesn't come at the moment. I think with the vanilla, the civet has a kind of waxy layer, a bit similar to ambergris. And the vanilla is going to kind of go towards the ambergris at the minute. It's going to form a kind of scent there. And I'm not kind of turning this. It could go in perfectly in a very small amount. But I think I'm just indecisive at the moment whether that'll go in.
And the other thing, as we're talking and building this, my head sees red. Not saffron, but an aromatic that's red. Like I want something that's just red on the top of this.
Yeah, I find like I get that feeling sometimes as well. There's a few things that I really like to use, like red champaka. It
There it
just
is.
screams
Yes.
red. Yeah, it just screams red. And saffron does as well, but because saffron occupies a very minimal kind of scent profile, it's not perhaps the best one. So I added just a drip of cardamom absolute here. Again, this one from White Lotus.
I have that too.
Really, really nice. I love the cardamom absolute. And it's really dominated instantly. Just one drip in 5 ml, and it's instantly dominated it. So what I would usually do in this instance, if a note came out too strong, I would double everything up again in the blend. But this time I'm going to add some amber here.
Another day.
Okay, were you looking for something?
The cardamom.
Oh, yeah. So I've added 6 drips of amber here. I have a few different ambers. I have an amber supreme. I have an amber musk, the amberine. So again, the cardamom is still kind of a very prominent note, but it works so well with the mimosa, the nutmeg, and the vanilla as well, but it's a little bit dominant. So what I would kind of do, if anything spikes up a little bit too much, I like to go back to the base and then kind of double everything up again. So that might be a little bit boring to kind of watch again, just all the same materials going in a second time. And that, what I would do while I was going through anything that worked really well, I would enhance the drips of that, and anything that did not work as well as I hoped, I would decrease the drips of that. So this is one of the ways I work, is just kind of go through, build a foundation. It gets to a point where you're like, right, you either want to reclaim the last ingredient. I want to go back one step. How do you go back one step in perfumery? It's quite difficult, but doing the entire thing, doubling the ingredients, and that's why it's best to work small, because you want to make more, so you're going to have to double that up, and then that gets adjusted through that process. Some things will be added, and then I'm kind of looking at what else I have here and what I would probably add to it. I think this Nambian myrrh, I would definitely go with some of this, but I don't want to add it right away because I want to build back that scent just before the cardamom. So you see how one drip in there at like 0.2% roughly, or just letting it settle for an hour, and that cardamom's just thinking, because it's such a like high note, it's going to sit there immediately. It's so diffusive. It's occupying kind of most of the fumes that come off initially. And I'd love to know what happens with when that cardamom goes in, things start happening. And this happens with mint and oud. When you mix the two together, they take a long time to bond. You'll get a pleasant smell in the first 3 months, 6 months. Gets to 1 year, the story changes. It's like, wow, it's just evolved into something new entirely. So mint notes tend to take that time to bond in.
Wow.
So that's also something to be aware of. If you're building a perfume, like those high notes are very volatile and easily changed, which is probably why it's best to start from your heart or base first.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you want to, if there's anything you want to discuss kind of about what I've done, any questions you might ask.
The big things is this ready? Like, because
No.
some people will macerate and sit on it for quite a while sometimes. Like you just spoke of a year. I mean, this will be more valuable in a year with oud and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And what I would do, sorry, go on.
No, that was the question. I think you get my question. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I would do, I would evaluate each attar differently. I've got a few stored away that are maturing, that'll be released much later, and I've not mentioned those to anybody because they need maturing. Some blends, they work instantly.
Is that musk and oud? Is that why?
Yeah. Well, mint and oud, one of them.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, so
We can talk about this offline too, because I don't know this part.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so if you think of it like trying to think of a good analogy to work with, but it's just because those high notes of mint are so volatile and light, and those deep notes of oud, like they're so contrasting that
Sure.
I think it takes time for them to kind of come and merge together. And those amazing like chemical reactions that are happening, that I'd love to know exactly what is happening when you add a drip of cardamom to, say, 3 ml of oud. It's going to have a dramatic effect on that oud, and it's going to start not chemical reactions where they're going to give off heat like internally or externally, but it's going to start reactions that are going to change quite drastically the scent and how it develops over time. So some attars are released quickly. If I feel like Lonely was made very, well, not very quickly. I made it, the foundation in a day. I let it sit for a week. I made a double of it, another amount of it. I let it sit for a week. Then I detailed it again. The process took about a month to make Lonely, and that was fairly quick. Some are in a flash, in a single day, they're made, and it was just that mindset was at the right state where everything fell together and got into the flow, and I smelled it the next day and I was like, I can't do better. And then
are they ready to sell the next day, or do you have to like let them maturate?
Some of them I will sell, some of them I will sell quite early on if I feel the scent is good enough. That like you smell it and you're like, yeah, that's a good perfume, I like it, then you're going to enjoy seeing that mature. And it's a concept I've kind of talked about with some customers is, would you prefer to get a scent that is matured completely and you get it and it doesn't change too much? Or would you prefer to get a scent that it's made and then you'll smell it kind of mature over time and see how it develops? And most people prefer the latter that I've spoke with. They would rather, they take enjoyment out of smelling it age. And I don't feel there's anything wrong about making the perfume and then like if it smells good enough, then I'm wearing it and I enjoy wearing it every day. So
that's a good argument, because I mean, you don't follow, I'm sure you don't follow all my videos, but in a ton of them I speak of this very thing is I got into cigars, right? So I knew about aging with tobacco and how it just changes everything. They just get better. And the same thing, same question proposed there. Would you rather have it at the peak age of the tobacco, or would you rather see the development? Because there's beauty in both. You know, at the very beginning, it's very spicier and it's got very different tones. I mean, it's very perfect maturation. You still get some of that and so much more, but perfume. So I learned right away. I'm like, these Aris the doors. I mean, in 3 months, they started changing. I'm like, this is beautiful. And then I just buried myself into the research of that, because I've had a rose go bad. I had to spent, luckily it was only 1 gram, but still, and I didn't know any better, and I spent $250 on it.
Right.
Because I didn't know. This is one of the first expensive oils I ever bought. First hot days, ruined, totally ruined.
Oh God.
And then, so I learned right away, like, oh, fridge, cool, citruses.
Yeah.
Where the woody notes, they don't matter as much, but any citruses, roses, florals, you got to take care of.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I'm definitely with you. There's just an education that we have to give people that it's like wine, like anything that ages. Like there's particulars you got to learn about aging to like Ottoman Empire or Malik Al-Taif. That's a popular Riesling D'Or fragrance. When I first bought it, because it was Hindi oud, really punchy dark oud and rose, I liked it, but all the Eastern guys loved it. All the Muslims, you know, because it's strong oud. I'm like, what are you guys? And in a year, I pull this thing out, and I'm like, wow, this is why these guys like these dark contrasts. What they can do over a year's time.
And there's an interesting concept with aging, like the native Indians, when they smoke tobacco, they always smoke fresh tobacco they don't smoke, they don't like it aged, and they say, like, you know, the white people, they like their tobacco old or stale, so they'd always smoke it very fresh.
Well,
So
there's a difference. You got to take care of the tobacco. I mean, there's you have to keep the
you
perfect
do,
humidity and
yeah,
temperature, or else it does go stale and
yeah.
bitter.
Hmm. So I added, while we were talking there, I'd worn the Attar, and I felt, yeah, the cardamom doesn't stand out too much. I can still keep working. So I added 3 drips of the Nambi and myrrh, which have a kind of unusual earthy high note that also complements the henna again, and the vetiver as well. It's a really unusual oil, this one. It's got like almost a purple smell, which would match with the vanilla. Vanilla kind of occupies what I would think is that browny purple quality. That same with castoreum fits in there.
What do you think of eucalyptus in there? Is that too much for you? Just the
It would
soft.
actually. And I pondered this. It was one of the oils I was going to pick up, and I was thinking cardamom, eucalyptus, and I thought eucalyptus takes it a little bit too green. Cardamom's a little bit more flexible, and it can kind of almost be transparent.
Then you just go 4-to-1, 1 drop of eucalyptus.
Yeah, and then you see, yeah, you just mix it and you see and you smell and you think, right, how does that work in it? When I think of eucalyptus, I get an image of like the stalks and the leaves are quite prominent. With cardamom,
Oh
it's
yeah.
different. It's that soft, powdery, that it's like a smell almost alien to the seed itself. It's something you can't really typify like a plant so easily as eucalyptus. So I wanted to kind of keep that plant feeling away from this blend, because it's more about that. If any plant, it would be kind of the coffee, vetiver, vanilla, those darker, almost gourmand quality to this. The cardamom fits in there with, but I want it in the background. I don't want it too forward. Yeah, and I'm happy with this, but it definitely needs more work. Like there's more vetiver needed, kind of more dryness, more vanilla needed, more powderiness, more accents, and a lot of things. Like what I tend to do, I'll make a perfume, and then I'll reach a point where I get a little bit mentally stuck, and I'll just have a break, and then suddenly, just as soon as you relax, ideas pop to mind. And I find that's a really good way to work. Like, don't pressure yourself and don't like try and create a hurry. Is just work in a way that suits you best. Some people are so technical and will love to, everything will be done on the scales and so accurately, and that's a brilliant way to work.
I
Very
can't.
methodical. Yeah, for me, I'm a little bit more kind of chaotic. I think, and I just like things pop to mind. Things are spontaneous a lot, and you get into a state of mind where you get flowing, and then sometimes that flow stops, and you're like, okay, I have to stop with it. I can't keep pushing it forward. Just smell it, wear it, smell it,
That's the
and
important thing, right? I mean, I've only done it a couple of times, but it's funny how and maybe it's smelling so much of your stuff.
mhm.
I do work like you're saying, and I've only
Yeah,
done a
yeah,
few things. And the very last thing I do in the day is I'll take a bunch of it, swipe it on, and I'll
uh-huh,
spend the rest of the evening with that and let it talk to me,
mhm.
kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, and it does it. That's what I said. Sometimes it's almost like these scents make themselves, because if you give them space and time, the perfect ingredients will come to mind. And I've had this happen where I've gotten stuck with a scent and then left it for days, weeks, sometimes months, even years. It's happened, and then suddenly a idea comes to mind, and you put it in, and you're like, perfect. It just needed time to kind of evolve and get that idea to mind. Or sometimes an oil you've ordered, and you're like, you've just ordered the perfect oil that you are missing for your ingredient, and that happens a lot too. So I'm going to go with a little bit of Javanese vetiver, and that is the kind that does lean a bit towards coffee. But I feel that because this blend is kind of in between that warm cola, henna, apopanax, myrrh note, henna, apopanax, nutmeg, amberine, and then on the other side we have the earthy qualities of vetiver, vanilla, deer musk, myrrh, Did I say myrrh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got these two kind of like groups of scent, and I want to push them together. And this actually now occupies that space between the two. So it's almost like the way I work is why I was saying before, like mint notes are so far away from oud. There's so many steps in between there, but there's actually similarities between the two oils. If you find the right oud that has a bit of a
Yes,
minty
absolutely.
quality, yeah, so it has some commonality with that. But there's so many missing steps in between. It takes a long time for them to do it themselves and bond. But you could do it like manually by adding notes in between mint and oud. So what I'm doing at the moment is trying to add notes in between this center, this kind of accord I've created on one side and an accord I've created on the other, a bit chaotically. It's not being done, made two separate accords. They're just groups of scent that are seemingly a little bit separate. And there's some missing notes in between that need filling. And this is where sometimes the mind is like, needs a little bit time and it pops up with ideas. But this Java vetiver, it has the earthy qualities of the vanilla and the myrrh on one side, but it also has some warmth and pleasantness kind of hiding in there that resembles the opoponax a little bit and the henna a little bit. So it'll be one step towards uniting them a little bit more. But it just took a little bit of time to see it. I don't like to put an ingredient in just like, oh, we'll see what happens kind of thing. It's got to be a reason for it to kind of create that bridge between the scents that we're making here. And I find this is like a personal way I've developed. I don't know of anybody else who does it this way, but I find it's a really nice way to get a full spectrum scent. So you can make your minimal scents and you can make kind of creative blends, but to unify those notes together, it either takes time and maturation or going in and manually like editing that. And I prefer that manual editing because it teaches me a lot about how notes relate to each other and how they react to each other. Some do occasionally surprise you. You put things in and you're like, oh, wow, how did that happen? And again, you can fix it by editing, doubling up your ratio or covering up notes or things like that. But I prefer never to cover up something. I'd rather double up. And yeah, so this took it a lot deeper again, and it's brought it back to the vanilla as a bit more the central focus. And now this kind of warmth with the henna and the opoponax and elements of the myrrh, it feels like it's come together more now. Just from that, because that's got quite a dry quality. And I felt it was getting a bit too syrupy going towards the henna as well, and the opoponax. They've got that more syrupy scent like Coca-Cola. It feels like a sticky, resinous scent, and it feels a bit wet to me. And I want it to be drier so the vanilla can kind of show off more when it's dry. And the deer musk also needs that like dryness, I feel. You could totally take this in another direction. It wouldn't be wrong, but it's just the direction I want to take it. I want like almost some element of hay. Like it's got to have this really dry kind of character, and that'll accentuate the deer musk more, the vanilla more, will take more heart and just push that really warm base down. So it's there and it's very prominent, but the overall scent is that the first impression is that kind of dry vanilla husk, and then it kind of opens up more to be resinous afterwards.
And your fragrances, for the most part, are would you consider them top heart and base? Because they're almost a lot of heart and base, minus the saffron. When you use saffron, obviously that's just a great top aromatic. But a lot of heart. I mean, what you put on is what you're going to wear, and it's going to develop with your body heat and whatnot.
Yes.
Like citruses, you don't use a lot of citruses, in other words.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't tend to use top notes quite as much. What I tend to do, like Lonnie, the recent honeysuckle attar, that was almost all like top notes and exploration, and it was a little bit different from what I was working on with heavy, deep bases. And that's usually where I prefer to work. I like really heavy, deep aromas, and I like really warm heart notes, just a bit more than high notes. But so I'll probably lean towards bass and mid heavy. But I like to accentuate high notes, like the Nambian Myrrh is a high note, but it's not going to be like a lot of perfumes where most modern perfumes are high note dominant. So mine are quite opposite to that.
Yeah, and I just want to. I was looking. I looked all day Saturday after we talked.
Uh-huh.
The Lonnie, I did not. I was like, oh, if I have a sample of that, I'll talk about it. I haven't.
I know. I thought I might have given you it. I did write everything down, but that was made fully like because I'd started and I called it a honeysuckle accord, and then it just evolved to a point where I'm like, no, I'm going to release this as an attar. I've detailed it enough, and I feel happy enough now that it's going to be one of my attars. So you caught it in between that stage of it was just on its way to being an attar.
Out of respect, I wanted to make sure that I didn't, because I went the video.
Yeah. So I think, I need more dryness with this, and the ingredients aren't immediately popping to mind. I'd put tobacco here as a possible option.
You've said that a few times, the dryness, and while you were saying it, obviously, I go, what is dry ozone to me would be myrrh, hay.
Okay.
What else? Like the ambrine and the amber, all the ambers that you gave me, those are kind of a sweet, wet ozone.
Yeah.
What are magic ingredients to create the dry ozone you're talking about?
So dry ingredients are a little bit rare as well, and they you don't have a really wide variety to choose from, in my opinion, with naturals. So one I would start with straight away that kind of typifies dryness to me would be Texas cedarwood. So that is like, to my mind, one of the driest scents you can have. It just perhaps it's like that pencil shaving kind of smell. It's almost like that powdery. There's so little oil or wetness. It is raw wood, just like wood shavings. So yeah, that would be a very dry ingredient. Then the vetiver, molecular distilled vetiver, is really dry. And I would say a lot of vetiver oils also are dry oils. They smell very dry, and they work with hay very well. Vanilla is kind of bordering. It's got a lot of dryness to me, but it can depend on the distillation or the technique. It can come out wet as well, like resinous and wet. So yeah, we said hay, vetiver, cedarwood. There's hiba wood as well, which is a Japanese. They call it Japanese cedarwood, and it's got a little bit more character than cedarwood, and it's also quite dry, but it's also got a bit of a green streak in it. And this is why I say it's very hard to find pure dry ingredients. Like, you're going to have to compromise. Like, I want something dry, but you might not be able to get something solely dry that's in the area you want, because I don't want cedarwood. I don't want this to be a woody attar at all. So cedarwood's off. Vetiver is not particularly as woody. It's more grassy and dry leaves and earth. And that's what I want in here. Yeah. So I'm thinking the absolute. I have a vetiver absolute.
Broom? How about broom?
Yeah. Sorry, broom.
Would that be? That's
yeah. Broom. Yeah, broom's a definite contender. I feel it's quite floral, and I don't have any floral elements in this yet. So it's got some of those qualities of hay and vetiver that we discussed, but it's got that a compromise. I don't really want floral in it yet, so it's gonna.
Oh, I see.
Unless I can kind of cover up that element, or it might even surprise me, and I put it in, and it gives me the quality, and the floral element might not show. But
so I have a question about this particular. So you mentioned a few times you have a very specific way you build. Like, oud is very last. Florals are at a certain point. You like to add in your ingredients. Obviously, you have a skill when you like to add in certain elements.
Yeah.
So this is a question for you. Because what I've done in my short time doing this is, like, if I wanted to work like with broom or whatever, or red champaca, the stuff we've been saying, I put a drop on my skin and then put a couple of drops of other stuff on my skin and just see.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah,
that
that's a good
it'd be
way, yeah.
overwhelming, but it'd give you
Uh-huh.
an idea.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. It is. And as you were talking, something just popped to mind, which we'd already discussed before, which is it satisfies those qualities in its I don't know how you pronounce this exactly. I think it's rooibos tea, and
Nice.
it's one of my favorite teas. I absolutely adore rooibos, and it has qualities of henna. So this is the rooibos tea, and this is one that I made. So it's an absolute, and this took I forget exactly how much. I just extracted some from a tincture of rooibos, and reduced it down just to see how it would work, because some ingredients are so unpredictable that you don't know how the absolute's actually going to turn out. The scent could disappear. It could make everything cloudy and muggy. You really don't know. But yeah, this is a new material I've used. Very, very thick tar-like material. But this has dry qualities to it. But it also has the warmth of the henna and the apopanax. Again, quite close in scent to henna. Probably why I like it so much. Henna is one of my favorite materials. So yeah, I have a really thick, gloopy blob of this on here, and that's not even going to drip. It is so
You're going to
thick.
use that much?
Yes, I have. It's not really strong in scent, and it's so close. It's got elements of vetiver, it's got elements of henna, it's got elements of the popanax, it's got elements of myrrh, that Nambian myrrh. And then tea, it introduces that new element of tea into the attar, but
And it starts developing my red that I have in my head.
yeah, it does that. It occupies definitely a red. It is a red scent, I would say. Even the leaves of it are red.
It's weird, like when we start talking about, even when I do reviews, like I just get this thing stuck like a
Yeah,
in my head. Sometimes blue, sometimes this, just different. That's why my backgrounds have so much color, because that's literally how I think during this stuff.
yeah,
And
and I
so
think
Rubio's just connects with everything.
uh-huh, it is. And I think this is something that's already in our minds. Like certain plants, their color, the oil will smell like the color of the plant.
Yes.
So ylang ylang, it has a smell like white yellow. Like it just has that aroma. And I think if you picked up a new floral smell and you said, what color does this smell like? It would likely match the color of the flower, like violet. Obviously, it's such a purple smell.
Oh yeah.
Iris, purple brown kind of smell, but that's from the roots, not from the flowers. Red champaca, screaming red sound. Golden champaca has that nuance of gold to it. It has an orange hue that the red doesn't have. Blue lotus smells blue. Yeah, so I'm just trying to work this in. This is a really, really thick resinoid, and what another method of doing this would actually be to separate off a little of the resinoid. And what I probably should have done that would have worked better. What is this one?
Oh, I'm showing everybody what I smell while you talk. Golden champaca.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could get that in your hands.
Yeah. I have one from White Lotus, but I don't have that one.
This is probably, I mean, with ouds and everything I own, it's one of the top oils I own.
Oh, excellent.
I can't believe how good it is.
It is an amazing oil. I have a white champaca essential oil as well. I'd never had the essential oil of the flower before, but I was blown away by that one. That was something really special.
This is called an emanation. Do you know what emanation is? That process?
No, you'd mentioned it before, and I'd heard of that technique at all.
I mean, I hope we can visit sooner than later and just smell these together, because this.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. Yeah, definitely interesting.
I get introduced to, like, you have to sit in your room and research and take your time, but because of the channel, I mean, introduced to hidden, secrets.
Yeah, yeah. I know one of the benefits you have there.
But I want to share. I'm the same as you. I need you to smell this just to know if I'm cuckoo, because like it's just you mentioned golden. Like this is what I like. Exactly like these lights behind me. It's like being in the center of those lights, just golden kind of thing.
Wow. Yeah, some florals can just do such amazing things, like, and I think it's really hard to find them sometimes as well, like those really good distillations. There's a couple I'd put aside that this Attar might have ventured into that territory of florals. So I'd put jasmine auriculatum absolute, jasmine sambac, and a orange flower absolute as well. Because I thought the mimosa, actually, I said before it didn't have a floral element in it. Did have a floral element, but
that's true.
Yeah, the mimosa is delicate, but it sinks into the rum smell, so you can't smell it as a floral. It smells more like rum. So yeah, these thick things are still at the top, so these are going to take a little bit of working into this vial. And this, I think what we'll do, maybe what we could do next week is show this Attar again and how it's changed, because this looks like a messy way of making an oil. And I work like this sometimes with quite messy ingredients, and other times it can be different. But
that'd be awesome.
We could maybe see next week and it'll actually have settled and there will be a clear liquid on the top. And this, it'll take a while to evolve. So this Attar wouldn't be finished quickly because of these really thick materials used. They take quite a while to infuse into the other materials. So this is one that I would think probably at least 2 months to kind of reach a state where I would be happy enough to release it.
You'll have to think of a creative way to sell this one.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time these videos are watched, I mean, it's going to be like only 10% of the people that want it are going to get it. So
yeah, yes. And I think just revisiting it again, like maybe on Instagram, we can revisit it. And it's always unpredictable. I could have went for something really like predictable today, but the inspiration came for something like wholly different that I've not done before. So I think maybe it might be helpful. What we could do in a future video is perhaps show like a very basic Attar, like how I would make a rose Attar, and just like work up a few different types of rose with sandalwood, a little bit of civet, ambergris, some oud worked in there.
So maybe I can do one with you. Like, let's put together the ingredients.
Sure.
And then, I know it's not the best way, and maybe we can afterwards, like, say, okay, we'll agree on more ingredients, but let's put together a list of basic ingredients.
Yeah.
We both have. Actually, that'd be fun, and see what we come up with. With our different.
Yeah,
I'd be happy. Different than your thumbprint.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that for sure.
That would be fun.
So I'm going to add a little bit of this. Now I think that's reached a point where I can leave it, because the scent is going to change quite a bit after adding that. So what I'm going to add now is just 0.5 ml of this ambergris tincture that we made last week. And that's just, again, to dissolve that hard matter that's in there and kind of push the sediment at the bottom, kind of clean up the side of the bottle with.
Now, will you put more out? Like, if you took 10% of that alcohol out, would you put 10% back in?
Sorry,
so say like you're using a tincture that's only 1 week old, which I think is phenomenal. So so if you're making a bigger batch,
yeah.
I don't know how to get this GoPro to stay on. Anyways, if you're making a bigger batch, so if you use 30% of that tincture after 1 week, would you put in more alcohol into that tincture?
No, I wouldn't. No, I would leave that. I wouldn't top it up with alcohol.
Okay.
I just leave it, and it would get stronger and stronger as it goes
I
instead
know
of actually.
I've heard people saying they read tincture of their ambergris.
Um, I suppose it can be done. But ambergris is probably not the best one to do it with. Maybe deer musk, if you want to be conservative with your deer musk, you'll get some scent out of it. The best is going to go first. And really, if you're tincturing it properly, you shouldn't be doing a second tincture because you're going to leave it long enough to get the maximum amount of scent out of it. And if you're using it for perfumery or selling, you can always add the grains in it so it lasts even longer. I know sometimes it's a shame you don't want to leave those grains at the end. They almost always stay in. I'll show the attar now anyway. So it's still a little bit cloudy,
Yummy.
but it's cleaned up somewhat than before, but it'll clean up more once it settles. Sometimes you might find it'll either create a sediment that if you shake it up will disturb the sediment. Other times you might find it creates a tar on the bottom that is solid and it will not pour out. So this varies depending with what materials you're using. You'll find ambergris turns into an almost like dust on the seafloor. It's easily kicked up, whereas things like that, rooibos tincture is not easily kicked up. It's this really thick tar. So
Do
yeah.
you heat? Okay. Well, I had a question for this one, and especially these ones you're sitting on for a year.
Yeah.
You do stuff to them daily, weekly, monthly?
It depends. Again, everything is unique. I mean, just yesterday, I've been making a new attar. I can show you. Just yesterday, I was making this one, and it had a lot of matter in it, and now it has very, very little. You can see a couple of little specks of ambergris in the top, but I gave it a very gentle heat, very, very gentle. It just sat on a radiator for a short time, just to melt the ambergris. That is it. It probably didn't even hit like 25 degrees. So it was very kind of mild.
When do you name them? Do you name them first, after, in the middle?
Usually after, usually at the end. So usually I've made the attar, it's completed, it'll sit for a while, and then I'll be like, right, it's ready, and then I'll look for a name. But sometimes you want it to be obvious, like saffron, musk, imperial. It's just saffron and musk are two of the most amazing ingredients that work well together. So that was made before. A lot of them I quite like to research a little bit and kind of find interest in names that relate to what I've used.
That's awesome. Yeah. I forget what I was going to ask you. I had an important question.
I just remembered I'd spilt that castoreum. I got a strong waft of castoreum in my face, and I just remembered I'd spilled that there.
I hope you're not at the breakfast table for tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I know. Thankfully, it wasn't very much.
I remember you did have a color series. I remember you shared some with me.
I did, yes, yeah. It was Al Khida kind of started it off with a green attar, and then I just made number 2, and then there was Yume Ao, which was a blue attar made with all blue ingredients.
Purple was one of my favorite.
Yeah, that was what is the name again? If I can remember. I even forget the name right now. I have 300 attars and the names sometimes leave my head. But Rêve Rouge was the red. Purple.
I did not know that. So
yeah, Rêve Rouge was
the red, which I love, Rêve Rouge. But okay, but you called it Imperial.
Yes.
This time.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and then so you added some more expensive ingredients. That's when you go Imperial, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so the first version was Rêve Rouge, which I'd made in the color series, and then I had a lot of requests for that one. It was really popular. A lot of people wanted it made again, so I made a batch, and then the demand came in so much I had to double that batch again. And make it. So I'd managed to get all the materials in again and make like a double batch of Rêve Rouge.
I bet Oceanus, that should be getting quite a bit of requests.
Yeah, definitely. The only issue, it was so complex in there. I ran out of ambergris recently, so I need to restock. I only have small amounts of the resinoid, which is probably aimed towards another attar. So I want to replace all those ingredients again. I made some really nice macerations for Oceanus, so they take a little time to make again.
Well, we can go. Let's go offline. Let's end this. I think this is great. We'll come back and revisit this Attar next week. And yeah, this is great. So thanks for part one. That's huge video. I think we're already way over an hour. So
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think
Unexpected. This is unexpected to see an actual Attar A to Z so far. We've seen almost the whole process here. So awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Abdullah.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Part 2 coming. Everybody, love you guys. Be blessed. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, everyone.